Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Matt, for your time
Right.
and giving me this opportunity. Welcome, everyone, to my first podcast or interview for my channel. Today, I have Matt, who is the founder of HtAG, Higher Than Average Growth. Uh, and I would, well, first of all, welcome, Matt. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
hi. Thanks. Thanks for
Yep,
having me, mate.
and yep, no, most welcome. All right, we will start the interview. Tell me something about you and your background.
Um, Professional background, I've been in the construction and development space for about 15 years, predominantly in project management and estimating. I worked for T2 and T3 companies in Australia on projects that are in excess of $300 million, mostly commercial projects. That's my professional background. My academic background, I guess, is I have a couple of degrees, one in project management, one in business management, and I've done the masters in both as well. And recently, last year, I think in April, I completed my Ph.D, which is sort of in the project management space. So I guess that background in itself has always made me interested in property and interested in property investments and understanding behavioral patterns that lead to growth. I think specifically what really interests me about property investment, as well as I guess that domain of development and construction, would be um, behavior that leads to growth. This is something that I really take interest in. I take interest in seeking out patterns, not only patterns in behavior, but patterns in data. But to me, that's one and the same, because usually patterns are in behavior become recorded as data, and then you can ascertain patterns in the data as well. So yeah, so that's sort of in a nutshell my personal and professional background. Hobbies, do not have much as a business owner.
Yep,
um, I guess I like to run, but predominantly I'm just immersed in building the business and trying to, I guess, always look for a better way to service our clients and a better way to assist them with making decisions. And when I say assist them, I'm all about centralization and speed. I would like to provide, or we would like to provide, a service that is centralized, that does not, in a sense, that clients do not require to venture outside of our platforms to seek information, but also it helps them to make decisions fast. Because I guess one of the reasons why I focus on that is because of my personal life as well. I mean, we're being bombarded with information 24/7 these days, and I sometimes get psychological pain when when I'm absorbing all of these pieces of information, and some of it and all of it might be potentially relevant, but we have to engage, I guess, in selective listening and digesting of information. And this is why platforms that assist individuals to just short circuit their decision making and make a decision within minutes can be of large benefit to everyone. Because I guess you as a buyer's agent, there are other facets of your service that require on ground pursuit, networking, evaluations, picking properties, speaking to agents, speaking to clients, developing briefs. All of that takes enormous amounts of time. And then if you can short circuit this research, it frees you up to actually build your business more in a better way. I
yep.
was
No,
digressing a
great.
little, but I'm trying to connect all the dots together.
No, I totally understand. Thank you for that. Uh, so what was the topic of your PhD thesis?
The topic was, I was researching existential dilemmas in the project management space. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the space, and whoever is that's listening, because construction and development industries are riddled with high suicide rates. And given the nature of project work, and I guess being an entrepreneur is very similar in the sense that, managing or building a startup or an organization is like delivering a project in itself. So I was always interested with the existential dilemmas that people face on their journey of finishing a project or completing a project. The interesting thing about project work and I guess building a business as well is that none of the days are the same. Every day is different in itself and poses its own challenges. So that can most of the time be overwhelming for business owners and project managers. So I guess just dealing with all of the nuances and the uncertainty is what really attracted my interest.
Yeah, great, thank you. Which uni, by the way, was your PhD with?
UTS, University of Technology, Sydney.
Yep, great,
I
thank you.
was on a scholarship, so I was on a 4-year scholarship. I completed a research project before that, which attracted a lot of the interest from my supervisors. So they just were inclined to, I guess, give me advice and ask me if I wanted to pursue. It was a very, very interesting process. And it was one of the most difficult and most rewarding experiences of my life. And all of the knowledge, I guess, that I gleaned from embarking on that journey really assists me with how I pursue research when it comes to property investment. I try to transfer my knowledge, although the domains are somewhat disjointed. They're actually not, because once you learn how to approach a problem as a researcher, you can transfer that knowledge to any domain. So I found it extremely valuable for building the business, and also understanding, as you probably know as well, is understanding different methodologies, different ways of looking at and interpreting the data. The same piece of information can tell us multiple things depending on what lens we use. So it was extremely valuable for everything. I've done it because of personal reasons. A lot of kids want to be cowboys when they're younger. I wanted to be a doctorate student. So I've done it for personal reasons, but then I've just realized subsequently how much it benefits me in business.
Yep, no, great, fully understand. So was it during your research studies you realized that, okay, that you will launch a business which is what higher than average growth HtAG is now? So was it the seed was there, like when you were doing research studies? Like, what is the story behind HtAG?
Yeah, so HtAG was born. Well, so I'm a bit of a hyperactive individual. And what I mean by that is my mind is always busy. So I'm the type of a person who would be running concurrently a couple of projects at the same time, because it just makes my life more meaningful. The stimulation actually makes it more meaningful. When I was younger, I used to, and it's interesting, my daughter is like that. She's 8 years old. When I was younger, I used to start something and never finish. And I guess as I've matured through with age, I guess I've learned to pick 2 or 3 things and really focus and bring them to their final destination and to the end. So as I was doing my research, and I think actually HtAG was born a bit before my PhD, to tell you the truth. I think 1 year before, or year and a half. It was at the time when I was doing my previous research project before the PhD. But as I said, I constantly, because I'm interested, I worked in construction and development. I was personally interested in property investment. I was constantly reading up on it, heavy academic books as well. I'm one of these guys who, if I want to learn about the topic, I quickly grab academic texts, which are really dense and hard to digest, especially if your background is on mathematics and statistics. So, I remember, it takes me months and months to read a book that's associated with statistics in property development. but I used to always enjoy that. And then I had a more of a soft skill pursuit in my PhD, because my PhD was a phenomenological study, was a qualitative analysis, but HtAG is more of a quantitative analysis. So I was running those both things at the same time. And the reason why, I guess, to your question, to answer your question in a roundabout way, the reason why HtAG was born was simply because I was interested in property investment. I was reading disparate sources of knowledge, and I was trying to find, to make a decision. I was really overwhelmed by, at that time, I remember subscribing and buying my property investment magazine. And what they used to have is at the back of the magazines, they used to have all of these tables. I don't know if you can remember, with free data that they provide. And I was just mesmerized by it. I was like, wow, I felt like I found the holy grail, as in nobody else knows about this. Obviously, I'm forever a child. So like I thought, this is so cool. I can use this data and statistics to find the best area. How nice. And then when I started delving deeper into the data and statistics, I realized is that it's just numbers on a page that do not move. So when you have a single number on a page, it doesn't really paint a picture. You need history and future in order to understand the story, So, obviously the subsequent issue of my investment property magazine will tell me more when I compare it to the last one, et cetera, et cetera. And not only that, I was, going to ABS, and proptech wasn't a big thing back then. Proptech as a concept, I think, emerged within the last year. It emerged previously and sooner than that, but before that, but it really started ramping up. Everyone's using that term now, everyone is throwing that around, So, I was just collecting information from everywhere. And I remember I used to attend events where buyers agents would speak. I used to network a lot just to understand. I remember I met up with a company, a buyer's agent business, and I had an interview with the director, and they used to give out a lot of free content, as we do now online as well. So they used to create events where people would sit down together and chat and all of that. And I remember sitting down with him, and he would explain certain things for me, and I'm like, yeah, you're teaching me this so I can make a decision by myself, And he looked at me like, no, not really. I want you as a customer, mate. He didn't say that. He didn't say that, but that was it. I always wanted to absorb all of this information so I can know how to make a better decision. And then I met Alex in the meantime, who is my partner, who co-founded the business with me. And he was a perfect match because I have, and he was an investor himself already, but I was more immersed into, the development and the property investment side, theoretical side of things. And he is, he was a senior software architect at Westpac back then. So he's really knowledgeable in data science and many other things as well, as it turns out. So it was a perfect match. And we sat down and we said, listen, why don't we just create something that is centralized, that helps people sit down and make a decision fast. And why don't we adopt, this innovative technology like algorithms and machine learning and big data. We needed large amounts of data sets, in order to produce insights. But, how about we start doing that? And it started slowly, our focus in the first 3 years was primarily building the business. We didn't care about sales. Within 4 years, actually, within the first 4 years, it was building the business and creating this many iterations of back and forth on what is working. And this is how it was. Alex is the brain behind the data science and the models behind the platform. And I was always the mystery shopper. So I would always, because I know how to use the information, I would always, whatever he develops and produces, I would be a mystery shopper. I would log on and I would use the platform and see whether I can make a decision and what I can improve. And then I would provide feedback to him. And it was a constant loop of doing that. And I do not have filters this is, you know, I've always been like that. You know, people who know me for a long time value that, and people who don't find it annoying sometimes. But I was always brutally honest, and luckily Alex is mature enough to accept criticism, and so was I on both sides. And it was a perfect match, you know, and it just sort of grew and developed. And after 4 years, the primary challenge was not to produce a platform that works and that is really beneficial, which we have done. It is changing the mindset of the customers.
Yep. No, great. Very good. Great insights. Any particular reason for choosing the particular name HtAG? I
Uh,
mean,
no,
what were the other names that came to mind? Like,
no, honestly, none. We wanted. I suggested HtAG. I know it's a bit of a tongue twister, but it's because it's higher than average growth, simply because we're trying to say that, you know, we can assist you to find areas that are different to others, on a national level. That was another thing, you know. For example, data in data in property investment space, or in the proptech space, is really segregated.
yeah,
There are different pricing models, you know, and people uh, provide their service in a different way. So some providers allow you to access estates. If you want to access additional estates, you have to pay more. And even I remember back then, my investment property magazine, I know it wasn't dynamic. It was just, you know, written on a page. So I couldn't shift and turn between different states, between different localities. I couldn't benchmark and compare, which I found rather sort of annoying as a person who'd like to, you know, find the best possible area. So yeah, so higher than average growth, I guess, stems from the fact that, yes, we can provide you with an opportunity to find those areas. And HtAG seemed like, you know, like a sensible solution back then. I personally still enjoy the name for so many reasons. And I know, and I see individuals struggling with pronouncing HtAG. But yeah, it just adds to the flavor, I guess.
yeah. No, I mean, I've been to the business school, so I totally get it. Like, it's like a brand recall, or because of its unique name, like people will remember.
Yeah, see, that's one way definitely to look at it. Of course, the other way is what people do these days. You know, is you know, they develop all of these keywords, and they create their business names based on keywords. So you know, you can optimize SEO and all of that stuff. You know, um, I don't know. It's just this doesn't seem personal to me doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
It can potentially add value down the track with search engines.
yeah,
Uh, but at that time, we weren't thinking in that context. You know, a lot has changed from the first moment we spoke about it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. No, we love the name, so keep it.
Thank you. Thank you.
What are some of the new and innovative applications of AI and big data technology you see should be adopted in the Australian residential real estate transaction process? As in, yes, investment, where to invest, hashtag can help us. But as a professional or at a personal level, what are the other urgent, I should say, uh, use cases
Mm.
we should adopt, like industry level,
Yeah.
at the industry level or business level?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question, and it doesn't have a simple answer. So first, you know, I have tunnel vision in a sense that I am focusing on building HTAG to become as intuitive as possible. And in order to do that, you need the assistance of machine learning and artificial intelligence. I don't think artificial intelligence has been incorporated into property investment space. I could be wrong, and I could be wrong because, again, I have tunnel vision. I'm focusing on HTAG, and I'm not really looking outside the space for ideas and to our competitors. You know, which I potentially should, because it will give me more ideas. But I personally think there are a couple of domains here. So first, a way of thinking how to incorporate artificial intelligence into different platforms and different services. There's always a debate of whether, you know, that's going to eliminate jobs and have a negative impact on the industry. We can discuss that later. My answer is I don't think so, but, you know, it's probably a discussion for another time. So artificial intelligence, and mainly to assist with making decisions that are in the future. So let's say understanding of how things are going to behave 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. So that's one way, and we are working towards that. Another way, I guess, would be to connect, to create peer-to-peer transactions. So to connect the buyer and the seller, or the buyer's representative and seller's representative, direct, more streamlining the industry. I don't know how that's going to have an effect on the middleman and how that's going to work, but I can see some companies beginning to do that. And then another way is blockchain. And honestly, this is a question for Alex more so than me. I am interested in blockchain. I do research crypto and invest in crypto myself. I think blockchain would be a way to provide, but it all depends how you do it, I guess, you know. So for example, you know, the Web3 concept, where I guess, and blockchain is adjacent to that, would be to provide access to real estate in a digital way. So I guess one of the biggest hurdles with property investment is barriers to entry. And when I say barriers to entry, I don't mean only legislative for those who are overseas. I also mean financial barriers to entry, because it is, you know, in some states it's really hard to purchase a property. And perfect segue, we are developing an affordability metric which will provide insight about this. But, you know, with typical values now being 2 or 3 million in some areas, you know, it will take you 3 lifetimes to pay off a property, you know what I mean? So the blockchain or digital assets or digital real estate assets, whether they're, you know, NFTs or fractionalized property, tokenized property, could assist individuals to leverage the returns of property investment at a lower entry. So that can be a way that, you know, we could I guess fix, I wouldn't say fix the problem of high property values, but address the barriers to entry issue. That is one way. Why blockchain in that instance? Well, I guess because it's going to be public, it's immutable. I mean, there are companies such as BrickX out there who provide access to that already, or who, I guess, democratize the returns in a sense that, you know, you can invest in BrickX and get the same return by a portion of the real estate. The issue with BrickX is that it's not international, it is local, and blockchain. And it's also centralized. It's centralized to BrickX and to a company. Blockchain can sort out those two issues. And what I find extremely interesting is that, you know, by providing digital assets or digital real estate, I guess, you know, I'll be able to invest in, you know, real estate in Vietnam or in China without having to deal with the legislative issues that are usually faced when, you know, when an individual has to go overseas and buy a property. In some countries, you can't even do it, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess it becomes more of a global marketplace in that sense.
Yeah, becomes a liquid asset class.
Correct. Liquid asset class is another term that I wanted to, I'm trying to, you know, grasp it, but I can't. Yeah. So yeah, that's, I guess, you know, again, to reiterate, I think AI and machine learning models improvements so we can forecast and make decisions better by using all of the information. What's interesting about big data, for example, and why I was fascinated about that concept is that, you know, I read a book on it, and there was a case study where, you know, banks in UK use traffic light congestion and traffic data to ascertain the investability of an area. So, which is interesting to me is because it's completely divorced from property investment, you know. But when you have large enough data sets, you can actually discern behavior of individuals upon which you can make decisions. And you can use proxies. You don't have to use data specifically related to the thing that you're researching, the thing that you want to find out about. I mean, traffic light data, who would have thought that that can assist banks in determining whether they're going to lend to people living in certain areas?
Yep.
So that's what I find fascinating, and scary at the same time.
Yep. Yep.
I think the industry is going to dramatically change within the next 5 or 10 years. And I think we are going to be forced to adapt to it in one way or the other. I think if we proactively think about how the industry is going to change, we will find our place under the sun, so to speak. But I personally, I personally accept this as a challenge. I don't think that this is something to be scared of. I know people are afraid of where things are going, and potentially they should be, but yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting 5 to 10 years moving forward.
Great. Thanks for that. Okay, going back to HtAG. For the listeners, I would like you to share with us like the top features of HtAG. Yeah, if you can highlight them to the listeners, like couple of like
Yeah, sure.
how it is different from any other online platform currently being used in Australia.
Yeah, so first, do you know what's interesting? I do not know what other service providers provide.
That's fine.
I
How is
know, and let me explain why this is so. I know roughly that there are other service providers out there and that they do provide certain things, but I was never one to seek innovation and creativity outside of myself. So I wouldn't go to other service providers and see what they're doing and try to either better it or match it. As I mentioned to you before, and whether this is at my own detriment, time will tell. But as I said to you before, I'm obsessed with developing the best service that I possibly can. And I place myself as a property investor or a property professional that needs to make a decision. So I play that role, and then I use my platform and I see what is working, what is not, and I improve. So roughly speaking, I would say that our service is different simply because first, and this is not the most important reason, but I would list it as first, because it's cost competitive. Definitely that's the case, because it provides you with a national access to data. The new feature that we've put out, and it's not one of my favorite features, but it's actually one of the best features, and I don't think there's any other feature like that in the marketplace. I don't want to sound too egotistic, but I really believe that that's the case. The RCS scores that we've developed that crunch in the excess of 80 metrics per the score based on a correlation and a weighting process. I think that, and see, this is the thing, changing the mindset of people and individuals to understand what they actually have in front of them. Because people are so used to using certain things that, they can't see value elsewhere. But this will change. This will change and they will understand. So I think that feature is not provided by anyone else on the market.
So just to clarify, RCS is relative composite score.
Correct. Correct. That's right. Thank you. And we have 4 RCS scores. We have a risk score, we have a cash flow score, we have a capital growth score, and we have an overall score. The scores are developed in light of the
and the low risk score as well.
Sorry?
Low risk.
I said the risk. The risk was the first
one.
Yeah, that's right. And the scores have been developed to be aligned with the strategy that you're employing as a property investor or a property professional. And the overall score is there, as a macro element or a search proxy that you can use to drill down further. So I think that feature is not supplied by anyone. I also think that the fact that we provide data on a national level and the way we set out our website is a bit different. All of the information is provided right there in front of you, so you can make quickly decisions and move from states to LGAs. You're not siloed or segregated, and I think that really helps a lot. The feature that I personally adore, and it's a feature that probably not a lot of people use, again, it will take time for them to understand the value of the feature, would be the GRC, the growth rate cycle. A lot of our industry is usually, you know, a lot of people in the industry refer to the property clock, where, you know, areas move from, you know, growth to decline to bust, and then they regain momentum. However, the property clock is static because you don't really know. So it doesn't contextualize data. This is what I realized. When it comes to the GRC, for example, an area can be declining, but can still be producing, still be making you money. So what that means is that if you look at the growth curve and you have an area that's which growth is reducing from 10 to 5%, so the area is declining, its growth rate is declining, it's still making you 5%.
Yep.
So it's much more intuitive, and it assists you much better, in a much better way to actually make a decision. You can time the market in a much better way. Not to advise that you should time the market, and I'm not here to make advice. I just you know, I like that this information can make me make a better decision. And I guess the GRC is a perfect example where you can first, when I say time the market, with GRC, you can see the cycles that the area goes through. So you can make a prediction regarding the position of the cycle that's coming next. You can also apply GRC to different strategies, specifically buy and flip. If you're into a buy and flip strategy and you want to leverage the momentum of the market, you can wait for the market to reach the bottom, the trough, and then you can buy a property, develop, and not only make money from the addition that you've made to the property, but you also leverage the momentum of the market. The property clock doesn't allow you to do that.
Yep.
It's devoid of context, and it's sort of in a vacuum. So yeah, so that's my favorite feature. But again, you know, overall, as you know, you see our content that I've been putting out on platforms, and I get text messages. I got 2 today from friends and relatives. You know, can you please analyze this, or can you please post about this area? And I really enjoy doing those videos because I develop a story about an area. So I start from top to bottom. I start high level. I look at the snapshot. Then I look at, you know, the trend lines. I look at GRC, and then I look at the balance between supply and demand, and then I produce an answer. So it's like you sort of engage on a journey to make a decision at the end. So the reason why I say this is, what I'm trying to say is that never make a decision from a single metric, and I made a video a couple of days ago, is if you have a large enough data set, and this is what's fascinating about big data, for example, is that if you have a large enough data set, you can make a decision from a single metric. But I always advise and suggest that people look at all of the metrics in unison, if not anything else, because it's much more interesting.
Great. Thank you so much. So who can benefit from using HtAG? Property investors only, or are there any other sort of target
Yeah,
market?
great question. So we've I don't know if people are aware, we've had many clients in different industries. So we had solicitors, we had government agencies as clients. We have property investors, whether they're individual property investors or professionals such as yourself. So, and our service is also varied. We also provide a service, I don't know if you know, we provide a proptech coach service, which is a high value service, and it's a customized service for people who want to use their organization's data to manage that data and produce meaningful results of that data. This is where we come in. We polish that data, we use our models, we teach them how to use the models and how to produce meaningful results. So we provide a service to outside of property investment space as well. Predominantly our customers are professionals such as yourself. It's a business to business relationship. I think the reason why that has eventuated is, I guess on the one hand side, our services could be a little bit complex for everyday investors, and it is usually property professionals who are versed in understanding, you know, the definitions of certain metrics and how they work. And also, I think that professionals are more strapped with time. So I
Yep.
think
Yep.
they gravitate towards our service because they need to speed up decision making. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, again, our clients are diverse, but most of our clients are property professionals who can benefit from our service. Anyone who needs large amounts of data, big data sets, anyone who's into property investment, whether it's an individual or professional, and also developers. So this is not really clearly delineated on our platform, but those who use our platform regularly understand that there are certain metrics there that can help you with deciding which area to develop in, GRC being one of them. But there are other metrics such as unit to house ratio, owner to occupier ratio, unit value to house value, ISRAT, other fundamentals that can, give you a snapshot. Okay, this area has the right fundamentals. I can move forward and invest. We will, however, expand the developer service further in years to come and provide additional assistance and metrics. But yeah, overall, it would be individuals such as yourself that benefit the most out of it.
Great, great. Just quickly, you mentioned IRSAD. For the listeners, would you please elaborate on IRSAD? What does it mean?
So it's in a nutshell, it's a score that provides you with socioeconomic standard of the area. So whether it's an affluent area or not. And usually these scores are used in the context of understanding fundamentals. Usually it's not one of these metrics that you make a decision on exclusively, but it's one of these metrics that you buttress with other metrics to understand, okay, the risk of losing money on this investment is lower because there is money within the area, if that makes sense, to just simplify it, to just simplify what I'm trying to say.
Yep. No, great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have you ever done a analysis as in like if a person who is using your platform, on average, they would save X amount of time or Y, like dollars, if they use your platform. Like this is how, there are other businesses, they highlight this on their website. Like,
yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting point. And one I wasn't focused on until recently, actually. I mean, I was always focused on it, but not focused in a sense that I want to specifically delineate it. So I think average property investor spends from 2 to 6 months to search for a property.
yeah.
I think those are the statistics. With HtAG, you can find the property in minutes. Not property, area, sorry, within minutes. So what you're left with at the back end is searching for a property.
Yeah.
This is where professionals such as yourself, are such a good addition to our ecosystem, because this is where they can pick up, or they can pick up from the beginning. Because most everyday property investors cannot, I guess, use and balance the data in a specific way to find an area in question. But going back to my previous comment, if you know the strategy you're using, so you're all becoming, and this is what I emphasize all the time, it's a bottom-up approach. It's a pyramid approach. It first starts with your strategy and with the individual. So this is where, buyers agents development of briefs or clients' briefs comes into play. You need to develop a brief to determine whether the client, will be under the capital growth investment strategy, under the cash flow investment strategy, under a buy and flip, or nuances in between, or under a balance strategy. Once you have that developed, you use our platform, you can find an area in question in minutes, less. Like it's just really fast. You type in you put in your ceiling, your price ceiling, you click on the RCS score, which you're inclined to look at, and there are other metrics such as confidence, error rates, and forecasts that provide you with additional assistance with respect to the accuracy of the data. And when you shift through that, you can easily find an area that you're interested in. So if it takes an individual, and this is just arbitrary thinking now, this is just, let's exchange information, you and I here. If it takes an investor 2 to 6 months to find the right property, let's say that it takes them longer to find, let's say it's 50-50 when it comes to searching for an area and then searching for a property. let's say it's 50-50, and you can probably correct me here. You would know more than me about this. So let's say it's 3 months. Let's use arbitrary figure of 3 months. So it takes a month and a half to find a suburb and a state, and then it takes them a month and a half to find the right property and to negotiate the property. I think it takes them less to find the right property because they already narrowed down the search, but let's say it's 50-50, okay? That means that we provide assistance in the first 50%, which is month and a half of searching for the area. If it takes you a month and a half to search for the area, you can use HtAG and you can find it in minutes.
Yep.
Is this an overstatement? It's not. You tell me. You've used the platform. So how much time do they save? 90% or more, or even more than that? And you're right. I think this is something that we should really advertise more and put out more. But the thing is, though, there's a community building behind HtAG and people who use it and people who value it and who see benefit in it. And I guess this understanding will slowly spread. We're not in a rush, but I potentially might, do a video on how fast it takes to find an area. But yeah, it eliminates a lot of headache.
No, great.
Would you agree? Would you agree with my, I guess, arbitrary figures that I provided?
1000%.
Okay.
Unbiased, because 10 years I've been doing this, the kind of time it really takes to find a property, a suburb or a location. It's tiring, it's exhausting.
Absolutely.
Constant, you have to, social media or take like any, video, audio, or written content, just have to continuously read, to keep up, be up to date. With HtAG, it's much easier.
Absolutely. And we update our data constantly. So it's a constant flow of data that's being updated. So this is why, a lot of people, what we tend to see is that a lot of people subscribe, then they unsubscribe, then they subscribe again. We don't mind when that happens. People use the service when people need the service. But that inadvertently shows that, yes, you can have information for this month, but that information changes in the subsequent month, So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, to your point, it takes a long time, but also the information is constantly updating. It's constantly updating, constantly churning. And you know what's interesting? There's going to be more and more data. Data is the new gold. There's going to be more and more information, more and more new data, more and more patterns that are coming out, and keeping track of all of that is just going to become an enormous headache.
Yep. Great. Just quickly, what is your vision for HtAG, and where do you see it in like next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a lot of things happening in the background, some of which I can't say or refer to.
Yep.
Simply because I'm prohibited to do so. But in a nutshell, we want to expand globally. The primary markets outside of Australia would be, New Zealand, Singapore, UK, US, and we're working towards that. It's also potentially entertaining some of the future ways of operating within the industry that we've discussed at the beginning of the interview, i.e. AI, blockchain, etc. So there is also an enormous backlog when it comes to features and different ways of providing information. When I say backlog, I mean there's a lot of opportunity that we see that we can package information in a different way, which will become better for our customers. And just because there's a lot of ideas, it takes a lot of time to put these ideas into practice and a lot of iterations, but we're slowly, chipping away. So yeah, there is a lot to do, but if I had to just narrow it down to 2 things in the next 5 to 10 years, it would be to expand internationally and assimilate or adopt some of the new technology when it comes to providing our service.
Great, thanks. Almost done. Like buyers agents are, I will combine two questions. Buyers agents are comparatively mainstream in the US. Sorry, meaning almost every buyer goes to a buyer's agent, and a buyer is represented professionally by a BA, buyer's agent. But this is not the case in Australia. In Australia, buyers agents are still a niche profession in selected pockets. So part of a two-part question. Do you see buyers agents going mainstream in Australia? Uh, and part of that relates to hashtag, like you have a buyer's agent directory. You have created. So so what were your reasons for purely making hashtag buyer's agent centric, as in for now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. I think that people are becoming more astute when it comes to business, which means that even the individuals who are purchasing their home within which they want to live in are gravitating towards purchasing the home in an area that will grow. So they're treating it as an investment. We can see that more and more. And I think it's been driven by a couple of factors, one of which is definitely the fact that, real estate is the most popular asset class in Australia. And it's seen substantial return in the last decade or two. So I think that trend will drive the introduction of buyers agents even into the owner occupier space. And as you know, there are buyers agents who simply specialize within that space, owner occupier space. Granted, it could potentially be within the luxury segment of the market. However, I do believe that's going to trickle down, because I personally, if I want to buy a home where I want to live, I would speak to a buyer's agent to negotiate the best price for me and find the best property for me, because you make money when you purchase, not when you sell. So, so the answer is yes. I think buyer's agents will become more mainstream. At what rate and how far, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it's also the onus is on the buyer's agents as well to market their products in a particular way,
Yeah.
and to expand their web and to expand their reach. And I guess I think it's necessary, because we have sellers agents on the other side which tip the scale towards the seller. So I think it's a necessary thing to have, and I think it will happen. When, I'm not sure. When it comes to, and this is the primary purpose, and I don't know if I mentioned that at the onset of the interview, behind HtAG is to uh, to assist people with making better decisions. I've heard so many bad stories. I heard so many bad stories where people were tricked into buying things, and bought at an inflated price. I recall, the off the plan apartment trend, where the rent is built into the cost of the apartment, without the purchaser even knowing, and then they pay off interest on that money for the next 20 or 30 years. I mean, that practice in itself is,
Yeah.
for the lack of a better word, disgusting. I mean, I'm not sure what else to say. But
Yeah. Yeah.
see, things like that, a lot of people don't know about these things. And if they had a buyer's agent on their side, it would definitely assist them, which is why we are developing an ecosystem. Yes, I can assist you in searching for the best suburb or for the best LGA, but then you need professional help in order to make the best purchase. Because getting a 5 or 10% off, and I'm not sure what the discount percentages are at the moment, depends on the area, of course. Getting 5% off the price of the property, not because it's a distress sale, but because of the skills of the buyer's agent, it is going to be to an astronomical benefit, because calculate in the interest rate repayments or the reduced interest rate repayments that you have, and then the immediate growth that you're going to experience as soon as you buy that property, because you buy it at a 5% discount, which means that you already made 5%, is invaluable. Is invaluable. So, for example, depending on the service the buyer's agents charge, you've already paid for the buyer's agents if he helped you or she helped you buy a property at a discount.
Yeah.
So that's all. That fee has already been satisfied. If you look at it that way, if you look at it from a business perspective, and you know what? I mean, I don't have time to search for a property. I do not have time to search for a property. You're building a business, you have children, family, kids, activities, soccer lessons, swimming lessons, guitar lessons. It's just all over the place. And I don't have time to worry about things. And put it this way, if I'm going to pay for a service for a buyer's agent to negotiate and buy the property for me, and that service will already be paid for because the agent is going to have sufficient skill to buy the property at a discount, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
It is a no-brainer for me. And this is where buyer's agents differentiate from each other. This is where the ones that are really, really valuable and skilled come at top. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value in this. I mean, look at the population growth in Australia. Australia is a huge country. There's a lot of land to be built on. So, the increase in amount of property will be astronomical, and it will definitely be required.
Great. And just to clarify, we are emphasizing on the independent and exclusive buyers agents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because they are cowboys.
This is very one of the reasons why I started HtAG is because, well, not I, Sasha and I, is because I've heard and I know of stories where certain professionals were promoting areas in Queensland because they have cut from the developers, okay, who are given them percentages of the sale to flog that property, not because that area is going to grow, but because they're going to make money from it. And then some agents made astronomical amounts of money from doing that. That to me was a catalyst. That was one of the main catalysts for starting HtAG.
Yep.
Because Mr. Agent, you telling me that it's great to invest in, Rockhampton. Well, here you go. This is, a printout. These are the statistics. What are your thoughts? And see, this is why proptech, will, and I think this is why good, it's intended to also keep everyone on our toes. It introduces accountability within the space.
Yep. I guess, and encouraging genuine and ethical buyers agents, and yes, advocating for the right thing, right cause. Yep.
I give you an example, an anecdote of mine that happened to me when I started HtAG. So I live in Sydney Southwest, close to Camden. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area. And at that time, as I mentioned, I used to research about property investment. I used to go to seminars. I used to speak to professionals. I used to ask as many questions as I can. And I'm not going to say nearly every professional that I spoke to, but most, when I said, guys, why are you, at that time, Queensland was very popular for some reason. The Rockhampton area, which is why or Toowoomba and Ipswich. I remember Ipswich was very popular. And I used to ask, guys, why aren't you looking at, Sydney Southwest? Oh, no, we're not interested in their area. We're not. And I remember I used to, and just this is a great example. Like this is why I have passion about, our platform and all the other platforms that provide similar information. So I used to go on council websites, me being inquisitive. I would go on council websites and it would say in bold letters on council websites, the first thing that you come across is Southwest Growth Corridor, Northwest Growth Corridor. So the government has delineated Northwest and Southwest as two growth corridors within which they are pumping astronomical amounts of money. And remember, this is before the airport became a big thing. We didn't know that the airport, Southwest Airport, was going to be introduced. The government knew, but we didn't know specifically. that area, Oran Park, Camden, Gregory Hills, Penrith, you know, those south, they're experiencing 2 to 250% growth in the last decades. Unparalleled and astronomical, much more than Ipswich, by the way. and see, this is the thing. It's either the professionals had a siloed view on investment, as in they were looking only in Queensland and they had their blinkers on, they didn't see anything else. Again, another reason how we structure our platform, or they had incentives to look at Queensland.
Oh yeah. Great.
Yeah.
All right. I think it was really great knowing you, knowing HtAG.
Likewise, man.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yep, yep.
Thank you for your support, by the way.
Yeah, no, very helpful. I'm sure listeners are going to enjoy the conversation, and we will get, maybe continue this in the future as well. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much,
Absolutely.
Matt.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yep, yep. Really appreciate your time.
And good luck with I guess your podcast and your content, and let's enjoy others' content online and look forward to seeing what you produce.
Yep, great. Thank you so much, Matt.
We'll speak again soon.
Yeah, yeah, 1 second.